everybody, welcome. It's Bridget with Chicken and Nugget. Today we are going to be making hot ham and cheese sandwiches. Now, I realize that there's a lot of different recipes for hot ham and cheese sandwiches, but this is something that I've been eating, or I used to eat, since my childhood. These were sandwiches that my grandmother used to make, and then my mom makes them still, and we've been kind of keeping them in our family for a good long while. So this is an easy recipe. It's one of my favorite things to make for people when, like, our house sitters are coming over. Andy and I are actually going to go on vacation, real vacation. And so every time my house sitters come over, I like to make them some extra food along with their fee that they charge us for staying and taking care of the cats, keeping an eye on the house, that kind of thing. So this is one of my favorite things to make for people that are coming over. I like to keep this in my freezer in case I have unexpected guests and I need to feed people, or just for Andy around the house sometimes, depending on if he's eating gluten or not. But this really is a very easy recipe. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of get started. And I like to do this. This is a little bit different. I like to use butter. So this is how my grandma did it. This is how my mom does it. And so I've got 1 stick of softened unsalted butter. Now, the reason I'm personally using unsalted butter and I'm not going to add any salt is because I'm using ham. And ham is pretty salty all on its own, so I don't need to worry about that. So I'm going to go ahead and get this. And this really is a great recipe. One of the beautiful things about this recipe is that you can use this with any leftover ham. So let's say you made a ham for Easter or just a family dinner. You can use this recipe for any of that leftover ham if you want to do something different with it. You don't necessarily have to use ham that you bought from the deli. And my butter may not necessarily be as soft as I thought it was going to be. So I just like to kind of make sure that my butter is nice and soft before I really get into it. And if it just needs a little bit of help, then I can do that now. But this is really, like I said, this is such an easy recipe. It's one of everything as far as your butter mixture goes. All right, so my butter is fairly soft, which is perfect because I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of grated onion. Now I'm using a shallot. It's very, very similar. It's in the onion family. It's just got a slightly milder flavor, and I like it because I can buy a small bit of it, and I don't have onion going to waste. So I'm actually going to just reach up here and snag this. And I recommend grating the onion. You don't have to do it. You can chop the onion really, really finely, but I find that grating the onion gives you more of that onion flavor sort of throughout. So I'm just getting this prepped, and then I'm going to use my microplane. And if you don't have one of those, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Like I said, you can chop it really finely. This just sort of gets all of that oniony flavor kind of throughout. So I'm going to go ahead and zest this, or microplane it, get it really finely grated, and I need 1 teaspoon of this. So I've got 1 stick of butter, 1 teaspoon of grated onion. And I definitely recommend the fresh grate as opposed to dry, but if that's all you have on hand, go ahead and use the dry grated, or use the dry onion. Like the onion powder, that would absolutely work. All right, go ahead and set this aside so it's out of my way. And I'm going to throw this in the trash real quick. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just check and make sure that I have 1 teaspoon of grated onion. And it seems that I might need a little bit more, which is fine. Now, if you really like the onion flavor and you want it to be a little bit stronger and more assertive while you are preparing this, you can absolutely add more. I'm actually just gonna do what I have. It's a little bit less than a teaspoon, but that's gonna give a nice flavor. I'll just go ahead and kind of scrape the rest of that in. And just remember that this is a guideline, really. It's not hard and fast rules. It's more of just a suggestion of how to make this. And like I said, if you prefer more onion flavor, add more onion flavor. If you don't like onion at all, don't use onion. This is just the way my family's been doing it for as long as I can remember. And it's still so warm here in Florida that that butter softened very quickly and nicely. So yeah, I don't personally prefer such an assertive or abrasive onion flavor that sort of smacks you right in the face. And when I'm preparing this for people, I don't always know what they like. So I try to keep that on, I try to take that into consideration when I'm making this for other people. But I definitely get the smell of the onion. I think I'm definitely gonna go ahead and use a little bit more. So there's my knife. Yeah, that was more of like half of a teaspoon, so we'll just add a little bit more. But see, that's the beautiful thing about this shallot, is that it's so small that I'm not using a big giant onion. And I'm just going to go ahead and grate this right over the bowl so I get that juice from the onion right into the butter. You can get your arm workout doing this as well. So one of the really nice things about these sandwiches is how beautifully they freeze. I remember my mom would make these in batches and then she would just stick them in the freezer. Especially as my brother was getting older and he was still sort of living at home, like his late high school years. And he would just eat everything that didn't get up and run. So my mom would make a lot of this in batches. And it was always sort of easy to do. All right, so there's that. I'm gonna move this out of our way as well. And just sort of tidy up a little bit. I like to try to keep everything as clean as I can while I'm cooking. Especially since I'm going to need all of this space to assemble my sandwiches. And maybe not all of this space, but I like to have my space available. So let's get this cleaned up a little bit. All right, and then here's the secret. Plain old American yellow mustard, and not necessarily American, but what you put on your hot dogs or your hamburgers. Just regular plain yellow mustard. Sometimes when I feel fancy, I add a little bit of Dijon mustard to this, but just regular old yellow mustard. And I realize my yellow mustard isn't very yellow, but once you start to mix it up with this butter, it will. There we go. And I just used 1 tablespoon of yellow mustard. I feel like ham and cheese and mustard go so well together. It's sort of a classic combination. And again, now that your butter is softened, it's really easy to just mix this all up. And put it all together. Make sure I get everything off the bottom, get it all really mixed well. There. All right, so I'm going to assemble my sandwiches, but before I do that, I'm going to switch out this spatula for a knife. I find that that works a little bit better for me. So I'm going to drop this off real quick. Grab a knife. All right, so I've got my butter mixture, and I just went ahead and I bought hamburger rolls from my grocery store, just from the bread aisle. Nothing fancy. You can go to the deli, or I'm sorry, the bakery, and you can get a really nice roll. My mom used to do that. You can make the sliders. You can make them, you know, big sized sandwiches. I'm going for a big sandwich because we've got big appetites around here. So I've got my rolls. I've got my ham, and I asked the person at the deli to just slice me 8 slices of white cheddar cheese. So that's what we went with here. But you could do Colby, you could do Kojak, Monterey Jack, you could do Havarti, all different kinds of style selections, whatever you really like. You could do Swiss cheese, but I went ahead and I did a classic ham and cheddar. So I went with white cheddar, ham, and my mustard. So let's build a sandwich together. So I've got my hamburger bun, and I'm just going to slather on some of my butter mixture on the top of my bun. And then I'm going to grab a couple pieces of ham, and I like them sliced thinly just so that way they're pliable. I have about 2 ounces of ham per sandwich. I got a pound of ham, so I'm gonna go with 3 pieces. And like I said, I asked for just 8 slices because I knew I had 8 hamburger buns. Let's set this down here. I need more room. I need another plate. There we go. And I just go ahead and I top my sandwich with some cheese, grab a little bit more of my butter, top the top of my bun, just so that I get it on both sides. Grab that. And then I know I'm going to freeze these right away, so I'm just going to go ahead and wrap them. I'll wrap these bad boys in tin foil. All right, there's one down, 7 more to go. Catch up with you guys in a minute. All right, guys, welcome back. I am on my last sandwich and I'm just finishing up. Now, if you have extra butter left over, you can do one of two things. You can either make more sandwiches if you've got the ingredients, or you can just save it. One of the reasons that I like to keep my butter in a container that has a lid on it is that way if I make a little bit too much or I end up with a little bit of extra left over, I can absolutely just go ahead and put the lid on it, stick it in the fridge, because I know I'll make these sandwiches again. And it's butter, it keeps. So just finish this last one up here. Get my cheese sliced down. Top some more of my bread. And if you want to be a little bit more generous with your butter, you can do that too. Just depends on how you're feeling. There's no wrong answer when it comes to these sandwiches, but they are very, very tasty, I will tell you that. So we'll get this guy wrapped up. Now, if I was going to serve these right away, I would pop them in the toaster oven for about 15 minutes at about 400 degrees, but I'm not. I'm going to stick them in the freezer. If I know that I need to pull them out in time and I can pull them out the night before or the morning of so that they can thaw in the fridge, I'll put them in the toaster oven for about 20-25 minutes. But if I do them straight from the frozen freezer, or if I do them frozen, I'll pull them out, pop them in the toaster oven at 400 degrees for about 30 minutes. So it just really depends on how prepared you are for these sandwiches to be made. But other than that, it was about 10 minutes total worth of work, assembly, and I've got 8 full sandwiches ready to go for anytime I need them. This is a really simple, easy recipe. It's a lot of fun to make, and it's great for leftovers, especially if you've got some that you need to use up. So look forward to seeing you guys again. Hope you're having a great afternoon. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.